Did they just bomb our coffee plantations? Ambassador Thompson stared at the holographic display with an expression that could only be described as profound disappointment mixed with mild amusement. The alien fleet hovering above Earth's atmosphere had, in their infinite wisdom, chosen to target what they believed to be humanity's primary tactical resource production facilities. They weren't entirely wrong, just monumentally unprepared for the consequences. "Yes, sir," his aide, Lieutenant Brooks, confirmed while furiously typing on her datapad. The Xenobiology Federation has destroyed approximately 78% of Earth's coffee-producing regions. Their official statement declares this a precise strategic strike against humanity's most vital chemical warfare facilities. Thompson pinched the bridge of his nose and let out a long, weary sigh. So, let me get this straight. The almighty Xenobiology Federation, terror of the Andromeda Galaxy, conducted a 6-month surveillance operation of Earth, concluded that our coffee plantations were actually chemical weapons facilities, and decided to eliminate them as their opening move in this conflict. That appears to be correct, sir. And they believe this will, what? Demoralize us? Weaken our military capabilities? Make us more amenable to their demands for unconditional surrender? According to their latest transmission, they expect Earth's forces to be severely compromised within the next 72 hours as our combat stimulant reserves are depleted. Thompson leaned back in his chair, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Brooks, please tell me you've already informed the Joint Chiefs about this development. Yes, sir. General Martinez's exact words were, and I quote, "Those poor bastards have no idea what they've just done." Indeed. Thompson stood up and straightened his tie. Well, I suppose we should prepare a response. Has anyone warned the Xenobiology about what happens when you get between humans and their coffee? No, sir. Though I doubt they'd believe us even if we tried. Fair point. How long until the first wave of withdrawal symptoms hits the general population? Brooks consulted her datapad. Estimated 6-8 hours, sir. We're already seeing a 300% spike in coffee-related social media posts. #Space War for Coffee is trending globally. Only 300%? People must still be working through their emergency stashes. Thompson walked to the window of his office, gazing up at the massive alien ships that loomed in the sky like mechanical thunderclouds. You know, Brooks, in all my years of diplomatic service, I've seen some spectacular miscalculations. The Proximan Confederacy trying to invade during hurricane season. The Centaurians attempting to disable our internet, only to unleash an army of very angry gamers. But this? He shook his head. This might be the single greatest tactical error in the history of interstellar warfare. Should I begin evacuation protocols for non-essential personnel? No need. Just make sure every military installation and civilian shelter is well stocked with energy drinks. And get me a secure line to the Xenobiology High Command. They should at least have a chance to surrender before the caffeine withdrawal kicks in. Do you really think they'll surrender, sir? Thompson smiled grimly. Brooks, in about 24 hours, they're going to be facing roughly 8 billion sleep-deprived, caffeine-starved humans who just had their morning coffee routine ruined. The Xenobiology might be the terror of Andromeda, but they've never dealt with an entire planet of people going through coffee withdrawal simultaneously. Point taken, sir. Though I feel compelled to mention that the Baristas Union has already declared this an act of war and is mobilizing their members. God help us all. The Baristas are getting involved? Thompson actually laughed now. Well, that settles it. Get me that secure line, and then I suggest you stock up on whatever coffee you can find. Things are about to get interesting. The next 48 hours would go down in galactic history as the Great Caffeine Crisis, or as humans would later call it, that time aliens learned not to mess with our coffee. The first signs that the Xenobiology had catastrophically underestimated their opponents came when civilian hackers, fueled by the last dregs of their personal coffee supplies, launched a massive cyber attack against the alien fleet's communication systems. Their primary demand? The immediate restoration of Earth's coffee plantations, along with compensation in the form of any alien beverages that might serve as an acceptable substitute. When the Xenobiology dismissed these demands as the desperate actions of an addicted species, they received their second shock. Earth's various space agencies, working on nothing but energy drinks and spite, managed to retrofit several satellites with makeshift weapons in record time. The resulting barrage didn't damage the alien ships much, but it did spell out "We want coffee" in orbital debris patterns visible from the planet's surface. Sir, Brooks reported, now on her 4th can of Monster Energy, the situation is escalating. Thompson, who had somehow maintained his composure despite running on 3 days without coffee, raised an eyebrow. Define escalating. Well, the International Baristas Coalition has commandeered several research facilities and is attempting to synthesize coffee using alien technology they've borrowed. Borrowed? Apparently, several Zixkari scout ships made the mistake of landing near major cities. The pilots were immediately swarmed by coffee-deprived office workers who stripped the vessels for any technology that might help with their caffeine crisis. Thompson nodded sagely. And the military response? That's the interesting part, sir. Our forces are operating at approximately 300% above normal efficiency. Come again? It appears that the combination of caffeine withdrawal and righteous anger has created some sort of enhancement effect. The Joint Chiefs are calling it Rage Mode, Coffee Edition. Thompson walked to his office's coffee maker out of habit, stared at it mournfully, then turned back to Brooks. Examples? Well, a squadron of fighter pilots, reportedly running on nothing but 5-hour energy and fury, managed to perform maneuvers that should be physically impossible. They're calling themselves the Decaf Avengers now, and a group of Marines successfully stormed a Zixkari ground position while chanting what witnesses describe as increasingly creative threats about where they're going to stick their coffee beans. Any response from the Zixkari to all this? They appear to be confused, sir. Their latest intelligence report describes humans as inexplicably becoming more dangerous despite the removal of their combat stimulants. They're particularly concerned about something they're calling the Starbucks resistance. Thompson winced. Do I want to know? Probably not, sir. But I should mention that a coalition of baristas, coffee roasters, and particularly aggressive morning people has seized control of several small towns and is attempting to build what they're calling a super coffee cannon. A what now? The details are classified, but it apparently involves pressurized coffee grounds and principles borrowed from railgun technology. The project leader was quoted as saying, "If we can't drink it, we might as well weaponize it." Thompson sat down heavily in his chair. Brooks, do you remember when we first made contact with alien life? All those beautiful dreams about cultural exchange and advancing human knowledge? Yes, sir. Would you ever have guessed it would come to this? A war sparked by coffee, fought by caffeinated rage zombies and militant baristas? To be fair, sir, anyone who's ever worked a morning shift could have predicted this. Before Thompson could respond, a new alert flashed across his screen. His eyes widened as he read it. Brooks, are you seeing this? Yes, sir. The Zixkari High Command is requesting an emergency conference. They're using terms like immediate cessation of hostilities and reasonable reparations. What changed their minds? Apparently, sir, they just discovered what humans are like when we switch to energy drinks exclusively. The report mentioned something about a group of college students who hacked their main battleship systems while giggling maniacally and vibrating slightly. Thompson allowed himself a small smile. Well then, I suppose we should hear their surrender terms, though I suspect the restoration of Earth's coffee production will be non-negotiable. The Baristas Union has already made that clear, sir. They're demanding overseer positions to ensure the replanting is done correctly. Of course they are. Thompson straightened his tie again. Well, Brooks, let's go make history. The first interstellar war ended by coffee withdrawal symptoms. What should we do about the super coffee cannon project, sir? Let them finish it. Something tells me we might need it the next time an alien species gets curious about Earth's beverage choices. The peace treaty that ended the Great Caffeine Crisis would set several interesting precedents in galactic law. The Zixkari Federation, in addition to restoring Earth's coffee plantations, was required to acknowledge coffee as a protected cultural resource and establish a foundation for the preservation and study of caffeine-based beverages throughout the galaxy. The Baristas Union, surprisingly, ended up playing a key role in post-war diplomatic relations. Their expertise in dealing with beings who hadn't had their morning coffee proved invaluable in preventing future conflicts. As for the super coffee cannon, it now stands as a monument in what became known as Victory Through Caffeine Park. The plaque beneath it reads, "Dedicated to the proposition that no species, terrestrial or alien, should ever come between humanity and its coffee." Thompson, who would later write a best-selling memoir about the crisis titled, "Sorry We're Not Ourselves Without Coffee," summed it up best in the book's closing lines. In the end, the Zixkari learned what every Earth service worker already knew. Humans without coffee aren't just cranky. They're a force of nature. And if you're going to start an interstellar war, you should probably check whether you're targeting a planet's favorite beverage first. The incident also led to a significant change in the standard first contact protocols used throughout the galaxy. Now, before any species attempts to invade Earth, they must first answer a simple question. Have you considered what happens when you get between humans and their coffee? Most decide it's not worth the risk. Part 2. The Caffeine Accords. 6 months after the Great Caffeine Crisis, Ambassador Thompson found himself in yet another peculiar diplomatic situation. "Sir," Lieutenant Brooks announced, walking into his office with 3 data pads and what appeared to be a ceremonial coffee grinder. "The Galactic Council has some concerns." Thompson looked up from his meticulously restored coffee maker, now equipped with a small defense shield, just in case. "About?" "Well, apparently several species have filed official complaints about humanity's new interstellar coffee shops." "What's wrong with our coffee shops?" Thompson asked, genuinely puzzled. The post-war coffee expansion initiative had been going remarkably well, with human baristas setting up establishments throughout friendly alien territories. "According to the reports, we're weaponizing productivity enhancement and creating dangerous levels of dependency in non-human species." Brooks consulted one of her data pads. "The Arcturus Federation is particularly upset about something called pumpkin spice season." Thompson took a long, appreciative sip from his coffee mug. Now standard-issue diplomatic equipment with built-in temperature control. "Elaborate." "It seems that when we introduce seasonal coffee varieties to the galactic community, we may have accidentally triggered some unexpected biological responses. The Arcturians, for example, apparently experience mild psychic phenomena when exposed to pumpkin spice lattes. They're calling it the basic binary override. And this is bad. Their productivity has increased by 400%. But they're also compulsively decorating their ships with autumn-themed accessories and demanding to speak to the galactic manager about everything." Thompson pinched the bridge of his nose, a gesture that had become something of a diplomatic tradition. "What about the other species?" "The Proximan Confederacy has developed an intense addiction to cold brew. Their entire legislative body now refuses to make decisions without it. And the Centaurians—" Brooks paused, checking her notes. "The Centaurians have started a religion based on espresso." "A religion?" "Yes, sir. They believe that the perfect shot of espresso contains the secrets of the universe. They're building temples shaped like coffee beans, and conducting ceremonies using modified portafilters as ritual objects." Thompson leaned back in his chair, contemplating the implications. "So, if I'm understanding correctly, humanity has accidentally become the galaxy's coffee dealer?" "That's one way to put it, sir. The Intergalactic Baristas Federation, yes, that's a thing now, estimates that human coffee shops control roughly 60% of the galaxy's stimulant beverage market. We're calling it the Starbucks sector. And the Zixkari? How are our former adversaries handling all this?" Brooks actually smiled. "They've become our biggest customers, sir. Apparently, after studying the effects of coffee during the war, they developed a taste for it. Their entire military now runs on what they call Warrior's Wake-Up Juice." She paused. "It's just regular dark roast with extra shots." "Of course it is." Thompson stood and walked to his window, which now offered a view of the newly constructed Intergalactic Coffee Exchange, a massive space station shaped like a coffee cup that served as the hub for humanity's caffeinated trading empire. "Any other diplomatic issues I should know about?" "Well, there is one more thing, sir. The Super Coffee Cannon Project team. They've gone corporate." "What?" "They've started a company called Extreme Beans that specializes in what they're calling combat coffee solutions. Their first product is a tactical espresso delivery system." Thompson turned back to his aide. "Please tell me they're not actually shooting coffee at people." "No, sir. It's more like a highly pressurized coffee distribution network. Though I should mention that their R&D department is working on something called MOEC." "Do I want to know?" "Mother of all coffee makers, sir. The specs are classified, but rumor has it they're trying to caffeinate entire solar systems." Thompson sat down heavily in his chair. "Brooks, sometimes I wonder if we've gone too far. If perhaps introducing the galaxy to coffee was a mistake." "Permission to speak freely, sir?" "Always. The coffee trade has prevented 3 interstellar wars, established humanity as a major economic power, and given us diplomatic influence over species that could literally eat planets. Plus," she added with a slight smirk, The Galactic Council meetings are much more productive now that everyone's properly caffeinated. Fair point, though I do worry about the long-term consequences of... He was interrupted by a new alert on his screen. What now? The Andromeda Alliance is requesting emergency consultation, sir. Apparently they've discovered T. Thompson froze. Oh no. Oh yes, sir. The British delegation is already preparing for what they're calling the second coming of colonial times. Space Edition. Brooks, get me the Joint Chiefs and contact the Starbucks resistance veterans. Something tells me we're about to enter a whole new era of beverage-based diplomacy. Already on it, sir. Should I activate the emergency tea protocol? God help us all, Thompson muttered, reaching for his coffee mug. Activate everything. The galaxy isn't ready for space colonialism powered by Earl Grey. And so began the next chapter in humanity's caffeinated conquest of the cosmos, proving once and for all that the most powerful force in the universe wasn't dark matter or antimatter. It was humanity's ability to turn any beverage into an instrument of interstellar influence. The Zixkari, for their part, would later admit that bombing Earth's coffee plantations was the second biggest mistake in their species' history. The biggest, as it turned out, was introducing the British to their local tea-like substances. But that's another story entirely. Part 3. A storm in a teacup. A very large teacup. Did you know, Thompson mused, staring at the diplomatic report before him, that the British Space Tea Company has somehow acquired a small moon? Lieutenant Brooks, who had long since learned to expect the unexpected, didn't even blink. Which system, sir? The Carina Nebula. Apparently they're terraforming it to create the perfect tea-growing conditions. They're calling it New Ceylon. That's actually rather tame compared to their other recent activities, sir. Thompson raised an eyebrow. Do I want to know? Well, the East India Space Company. They didn't. They did, sir. Registered last Tuesday. Their mission statement includes phrases like, bringing civilization to the galaxy one cuppa at a time, and the sun never sets on the British space empire. Thompson took a long drink from his coffee mug, now upgraded with a quantum encryption lock after an attempted theft by caffeine-addicted Arcturians. Please tell me they're not actually trying to colonize alien worlds with tea shops. Brooks shifted uncomfortably. Define colonize, sir. Brooks. The official term they're using is cultural exchange through strategic tea deployment. But yes, they're essentially setting up tea shops and claiming the surrounding territory in the name of Her Majesty's Space Fleet. We have a space fleet now? The British insisted it was necessary for protecting the tea trade routes. They've commissioned several ships, all named after famous tea varieties. The HMS Earl Grey is their flagship. Thompson massaged his temples. And how are the aliens responding to all this? Mixed reactions, sir. The Andromeda Alliance has fully embraced tea culture. They've started having something called space high tea, where they discuss galactic politics while eating scones in zero gravity. The crumb situation is apparently nightmarish. And the others? The Zixkari are experiencing what human anthropologists are calling beverage-based cultural shock. They're not sure whether to be more afraid of our coffee or our tea at this point. Several of their diplomatic stations have started serving both, just to be safe. At least they're learning, Thompson muttered. What about the Galactic Council? They've scheduled an emergency session to discuss what they're calling the hot beverage hegemony. Earth now controls both the coffee and tea trades. Some species are concerned we're building a beverage-based economic empire. Aren't we? That's beside the point, sir. The real issue is the growing tension between the coffee and tea factions. There was an incident last week. Thompson groaned. What kind of incident? A British tea merchant got into a debate with an Italian barista about proper brewing temperatures. It escalated quickly. They're still trying to clean up the mess on Alpha Centauri. Casualties? No, sir. But several aliens were traumatized by what they describe as aggressive beverage evangelism. The Centaurians have added a new chapter to their espresso religion about the Great Hot Drink Schism. Thompson stood and walked to his window, which now offered a view of both the Intergalactic Coffee Exchange and its new competitor, the Royal Space Tea Emporium, a station shaped like a perfectly proper teapot, complete with an orbital handle. Brooks, do you ever wonder if we should have kept our beverage preferences to ourselves? Too late for that, sir. The Proximan Confederacy has already declared tea and coffee essential strategic resources. They're offering military protection to any human beverage vendors in their territory. And the Super Coffee Cannon team? How are they handling the tea situation? Brooks consulted her datapad. They've merged with a British defense contractor, sir. They're developing something called the T-Max system. Tactical Earl Grey Automated Xenocultural Integration. That sounds ominous. It's actually just a very large space teapot with a Union Jack painted on it. Though I should mention that the MOAC project has evolved. Do I want to know? They're calling it MoCat now. Mother of all caffeinated things. It's designed to deploy both coffee and tea in tactically significant quantities. The project lead was quoted as saying, "In space, everyone can hear you steep." Thompson sat back down at his desk, which now featured both a coffee maker and a tea set, diplomatic neutrality being essential. What's our next move? Well, sir, the Joint Chiefs suggest we try to maintain balance between the coffee and tea factions. They're calling it the hot beverage détente. And unofficially? Unofficially, we're preparing for what intelligence is calling the caffeine convergence, the point at which the galaxy becomes completely dependent on human hot beverages. How close are we to that point? The Arcturus Federation has already declared both coffee and tea their official state drinks. The Centaurians have merged their espresso religion with tea mysticism to create something called caffeinated enlightenment. And the Zixkari... Brooks paused, checking her notes. The Zixkari have submitted a formal application to become a British space colony, solely for guaranteed access to tea supplies. Thompson blinked. They what? Their exact words were, "Resistance is futile. Pass the sugar." Just then, another alert flashed across Thompson's screen. His eyes widened as he read it. Brooks, please tell me this is a joke. What is it, sir? The Americans have apparently discovered that several alien species have never heard of soft drinks. They're launching something called Operation Carbonated Freedom. Brooks went pale. Dear God. My thoughts exactly. Get me the British ambassador. If we're going to survive the coming beverage wars, we need all the allies we can get. And Brooks? Yes, sir? Stock up on tea and coffee. Something tells me we're going to need both before this is over. The galaxy, it seemed, was about to discover that humanity's beverage-based influence was far from limited to just coffee and tea. The age of human drinks was only beginning, and somewhere in the vast expanse of space, a Coca-Cola executive was already planning interstellar vending machine deployment strategies. The Zixkari would later update their official history books to include a new entry. Note to future generations, never ever mess with Earth's beverages, any of them. Part 4. The Carbonation Situation. Sir, Lieutenant Brooks announced, bursting into Thompson's office with an urgency usually reserved for imminent planetary destruction. We have a situation with Operation Carbonated Freedom. Thompson, who had just finished mediating a dispute between British tea merchants and Italian espresso diplomats, looked up wearily. What did the Americans do now? They introduced the Centaurians to Mountain Dew. There was a long pause as Thompson processed this information. The energy drink or the regular version? Both, sir. The Centaurians' espresso religion has undergone a schism. They're now divided between the orthodox coffee purists and the Reformed Church of Extreme Caffeine. Thompson reached for his emergency stash of headache pills, now standard issue for all beverage-related diplomatic incidents. Casualties? No deaths, but we're seeing unprecedented levels of hyperactivity in the Centaurian sector. They've reportedly completed 3 centuries of technological advancement in the past week, though some of their new inventions appear to be powered by pure caffeine and questionable judgment. Examples? They've developed something called a dew drive for faster-than-light travel. It apparently runs on a mixture of Mountain Dew and espresso. The test pilots have been described as terrifyingly alert. Before Thompson could respond, another alert flashed across his screen. Oh no. What is it, sir? Coca-Cola has made first contact with the Arcturus Federation. Brooks went still. The whole Federation? Apparently they bypassed traditional diplomatic channels and airdropped vending machines onto every major Arcturian world. The machines are programmed to dispense free samples. That's aggressive. It gets worse. The Arcturians have discovered that their biology processes carbonation differently than humans. The bubbles are making them temporarily telepathic. Brooks blinked. Is that bad? They're using their newfound telepathic abilities to share Coca-Cola advertising jingles across their collective consciousness. Their entire civilization has been singing "Have a Coke and a Smile" for 3 days straight. At least it's not Pepsi. Another alert interrupted her. Thompson's face went through several interesting expressions as he read it. Too late. Pepsi just announced their Peace Through Cola initiative. They're offering their drinks as an alternative to traditional peace treaties. Can they do that? Apparently, several species have already signed on. The Zixkari, in particular, seem very interested in the concept of diet beverages. They've proposed replacing their entire diplomatic corps with vending machines. Brooks consulted her datapad. Sir, I'm also seeing reports about other soft drink companies entering the market. Dr. Pepper is establishing a research facility in the Orion Nebula to study the effects of their 23 flavors on various alien physiologies. And Sprite? They've somehow convinced the Proximan Confederacy that their drink has cleansing properties. The Proximans are now using it in religious ceremonies. Thompson stood and walked to his window, which now offered a view of the latest addition to humanity's beverage-based space infrastructure. A massive orbital advertising platform displaying rotating holographic soda logos visible from 3 star systems. Brooks, do you remember when our biggest concern was coffee-related diplomatic incidents? Those were simpler times, sir. How's the British tea contingent handling all this? They're adapting, sir. Several prominent tea merchants have started experimenting with carbonated tea beverages. They're calling it Project Fizzy Proper. And the coffee faction? Starbucks has announced plans for a new drink line called Interstellar Frappuccinos. Early tests suggest they might accidentally create artificial gravity. Thompson returned to his desk, which now featured a coffee maker, tea set, and what appeared to be a prototype quantum vending machine capable of dispensing drinks across space-time. What's our next major concern? Well, sir, intelligence has identified several potential scenarios. The most pressing is what they're calling the root beer revelation. Do I want to know? Several alien species have discovered that root beer creates a mild euphoric effect in their biology. A&W is already being treated as a controlled substance in 3 sectors. Wonderful. Any other crises I should be aware of? Brooks hesitated. There is one more thing, sir. The Super Coffee Cannon team. Or rather, their new incarnation, the Beverage Defense Initiative. Yes? They've developed something called the MOEX, Mother of All Carbonated Systems. It's essentially a weaponized soda fountain capable of deploying tactical refreshment on a planetary scale. Please tell me they haven't tested it yet. No, sir, but they did release some theoretical calculations. Apparently, if used at full power, it could theoretically turn a gas giant into a giant soft drink. Thompson pinched the bridge of his nose. Brooks, sometimes I think we've created a monster. First coffee, then tea, and now this? Where does it end? Actually, sir, about that. Brooks pulled up another report. Have you heard about the energy drink company's new space program? Oh, God. Red Bull has announced plans to give actual wings to several species. Monster Energy is working on something called extreme terraforming, and 5 Hour Energy claims they can compress time itself. Just then, yet another alert appeared. Thompson read it and started laughing. Sir, the Galactic Council has just classified Earth as a Class X civilization. I'm not familiar with that designation. It's new. They created it specifically for us. The X stands for xenobeverage, a civilization capable of conquering the galaxy through drinks alone. Brooks allowed herself a small smile. Should we be concerned? About what? The fact that we've accidentally created a galactic economy based entirely on human beverages? That alien civilizations are developing FTL technology powered by Mountain Dew? Or that the British are about to launch a tea-based space colonization program? All of the above, sir? Thompson leaned back in his chair. Brooks, I've learned something during this whole situation. Never underestimate humanity's ability to turn anything, even something as simple as a beverage, into a tool of galactic influence. And the aliens, sir? What have they learned? That's simple. Don't mess with Earth's drinks, any of them. As if to emphasize his point, a new holographic advertisement appeared outside his window, showing a Zixkari warrior doing its species equivalent of a smile while holding both a cup of tea and a can of soda, with the tagline, Earth drinks, resistance is fizzy lay. The age of human beverages was no longer beginning. It was in full swing. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, a meeting was being held to discuss humanity's next great export, snack foods. But that's definitely another story. The end, for now.